Quilt Guild. I'm so excited to see you. We have a couple of things we're going to take care of, but we have a speaker tonight, and we want to get show and tell in at the end. So, and we don't want to go home at 10 o'clock. All right? Yeah. So. I know. Now, before we get started, we have some new people here. Where are you? Stand up, please. Okay. All right, now wait a minute. You don't get out of it that easy. Kathy, tell us your name.
Kathy Chmielewski.
All right, Kathy. Oh, what brought you here?
A car.
Oh, good. Good. We're so glad. And Stephanie, what's your name? And what brought you here?
I've always wanted to come, but I also flew with New York and I wanted to see their show.
Oh, wonderful. That's wonderful. All right. And we have one more over here, and I think your name is Dawn.
What's your name? How are you? My name is Dawn Tucker.
And Dawn, who brought you here?
Well, I met this lady named Bonnie in a waiting room. And I told her I liked her mask.
Yep, so I told her I was a quilter, and she was a quilter, and it's like, see how we get members here? Isn't that awesome? Please, let's welcome. And I hope you come back, all three of you. You're returning, so I don't need to name your Nancy? Okay. I got that in, didn't I? Okay. We need some more projects of the month people.
Want me to say this?
Yes.
All right, we need somebody for July and December.
Why don't you explain it for the new people?
What you're asking for. So it'd be for August.
I can't hear you.
To present in July, so you would have a project that might be good for August.
Correct, yep. So this is a project of the month that they have been going over to, well, meeting up with Bonnie somehow, however you would like, and making a video on a simple project that you can get done that's not like an entire quilt. Maybe a project that you've been interested in doing, and then also providing it step by step so that the Quilt Guild members can also follow along and hopefully bring it to the next meeting to show and tell that you have, created something fun and interesting to show the person that signed up for that month that it was a fun project. So it could be something super simple. It could be something that you can use your scraps, or it could be something that, maybe you have to go and get a couple of things. It could even be something that you might have to purchase a pattern for, but hopefully the person who's presenting can kind of sell that idea and get excited, like the one I see already, and hopefully you saw on the video when you were sitting here waiting for the meeting to start. So we need July and December, and you can tell us at the end, you don't have to say it right now, but then we also need,
December.
I said December.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Karen. I kind of put her on the spot there. So if you have any other questions, just come to us, write to us, call us, whatever, and we'll take care of that. All right. We are not going to do any business meetings per se on the second Tuesday of the month. We're going to save those for the fourth Thursday of the month. We're going to Zoom. If you ladies, if you're afraid of Zooming or you need help, please let me know. We will get you help so that you can join us on Zoom. It's a lot of fun, and we've already put out a challenge for the last Zoom meeting, okay? So if you're a member, get in touch with me. Well, wait a minute. I'm kind of talking like blah, 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 and where's Flo? Flo, you sent that challenge out to the members, did you? Or was I to send you something and you're gonna send it out? Okay, well, I can't blame it on chemo brain, so it's just old brain. I'll get that to you, Flo, okay? So we're gonna send it out to the members, that way you know what the challenge is and you can get working on it. All right, let me see, we need greeters as well. So if you're interested in greeting, yes.
Tell us what the challenge is.
Well, I don't want it to be on Facebook Live because then everybody, I'll tell you, right, because we wanted Thursday night, the fourth Thursday, to be for members only. Because when we do this live on Facebook on the second Thursday, then anybody can see it. And we want to offer something to the members. You understand?
Yeah, but I thought it was that we talked about this like 2 Thursdays ago, and it was due for 2 Thursdays from now.
Yes, it will be. We talked about it then. And so members, if you need to know tonight, please come and ask me. Or I'll turn it off. Sorry. I can't. Yeah, I'll tell you at the end, okay? All right. All right, let's move on. We've got greeters we need. Please, greeters, we need May, June, July, August, September, and October, and December. We're going to pass it around, and please sign up. We need 2 people at each one. Okay. Sharon Cook, would you please come up? Now, we played a video a little bit ago while everybody was coming in, and that's the project of the month. I wasn't sure how to do this and get it all fit in tonight with having a speaker and everything. So Sharon is going to quickly go over everything, but her project of the month is going to be put on Facebook Live tonight at 8:30, and it will go on YouTube as well, okay? So you'll be able to see it then. All right, here you go.
Okay, hi, I'm Sharon Cook, or Sharon K. I'm wearing my apron here because I am an official Sulky instructor, and so one of the projects that you're going to see on the Facebook is going to be actually Sulky's project. And basically what it is a 3D travel tray, and what's neat about it, if you watch the video later, this is actually the one that I was making on the video. And it's nice because it does pack flat when you unsnap it, but you can snap it up, and then you have a little travel tray, which you can use, you know, we're doing it for our keys by the kitchen door. I'm going to use this one over here for my thread catcher when we go on retreat. I know, I'm like, also, if you watch the video, I talk about how to use metallic thread and making sure that you're using the right size needles. You definitely want to have, if you're using metallic thread, a 90-14 needle, because it has to have that bigger hole, the eye in there, to allow that to go through. And am I the only one that just didn't know about this product called Sewer's Aid? Has anybody ever heard of this, Sewer's Aid? Oh my God, this is like so cool. It made that metallic thread work so well. So, I mean, I never heard about this until like a couple months ago, and I keep using it now. So, if you want to see this project, stop by my, my seat over there at the table. I'll show you what stabilizer I use and what it feels like if you want to get one that's equivalent to that. and I'll show you the snaps that I use for this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Isn't that wonderful? Thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you. That was great. And I'll tell you what, I really appreciate all of the project of the month so far. It's just been wonderful and a lot of fun too. Okay, I think that we're going to go ahead and we're going to introduce the speakers. Karen is our vice president, Karen Wenger, and she's going to take over.
All right, so we have Rick and Ruth from Raggedy Ruth Designs from Valparaiso. I won't say much because I know they have a great presentation for us and they have lots of stuff for us to look at when they are done. So I'm super excited to just pass it over to you.
Okay. Do you want this thing in? Oh, I think I do. I'm gonna push it out farther. Do you want it over there by you? Well, I gotta at least be able to see what slide he's on. That works. Is that gonna be okay? That works. Here it is. Oh.
There.
Okay, I'm gonna take this over. I will asphyxiate by the end of the All right, good evening, everybody. As she said, I'm Ruth Verholva from Forever in Stitches. Just to introduce my crew I actually brought tonight. I've got my husband Rick here running the presentation, and hiding back here in the corner is my son Peter. He's our brawn for the night. He lugged in all these hefty suitcases. Before we get started, I'm going to have to ask for 2 volunteers, preferably somebody tall, that will hold up quilts for me. Anybody? Okay, I got 1 and I got 2. Oh, okay, we got 2 right there. Okay. Just to explain to you a little bit, I've got them all organized. This is suitcase 1, 2, 3, and there's a little one back there. Okay. On these double ones, always start on the left. And we should be able to keep everything in the right order. And then when you're done with them, actually, can I get a third person? Third person to lay them out here. I want to lay them out here on the table so you can come back later on if there's one that you want to dig through the pile and take another look at. I currently operate a long arm studio, as she said, in the about the northwestest corner of Valpo. Any farther, and I think I'd be in, what is it, New Haven? What you're seeing on the screen is a panoramic view of my studio. It's actually what was my garage that son and another son converted into a very nice, warm, comfortable place to have my 2 long arms. I have 2 Innovas that I run there. And so that's kind of what it looks like as you're coming in the side door. There's a separate entrance into the garage, so you're not feeling like you're coming into my house. Okay. I'm known as Raggedy Ruth because Raggedy was my very best friend growing up, Raggedy Ann. In fact, the story I tell of my mother is that I had a very tattered Raggedy Ann, and she was a seamstress. She made all our clothes. We were the 3 sisters that came to Easter with matching dresses that matched hers. And so she was a sewer, not a quilter. But she took my Raggedy and completely remade her, as far as I know, overnight. But my doll was still inside there, so I don't have her. I don't know whatever happened to her, but that's why I go by Raggedy Ruth. And as we get started, I do encourage questions. If you have any questions or don't understand anything, please just stop, raise your hand, ask. I'll take the questions. We're on that one. We actually started in 2004. We opened Forever in Stitches as a quilt shop and long arming studio back in Bluffton, Ohio. We moved here last May, a year ago now, March, and got our long arms in place, and COVID hit. Not too bad. I had actually brought 44 some quilts with me from Ohio. And for this past year, besides picking up a few new customers that I see in the room tonight, I've had most of my customers from Ohio ship them. And they have been glad to ship them. If it's $75 or more, we pay for the shipping back. And it's actually worked out quite nice. I've been able to use email to give them quilting ideas and even thread color matches and things like that. And it's been working quite nicely. All right, as he flipped to this slide, Raggedy Ruth, as that part of my business, I've got over 160 patterns. I only brought 32 quilts tonight, so we're not doing all 160. I didn't have that many suitcases. I also have 3 books. One of them is kind of out of print now, and 2 tools that one I'll talk to you about as we go through the presentation. But I want to start, if you'll flip to the next slide, to point out this was probably very much like one of my very first patterns, because as a shop owner, the fabric reps are always telling you, sample, sell, sample, sell. So you get fabric in, you got to make something out of it. Well, some fabric came in, so I threw together some pinwheels, and I thought it was enough to just show a picture of what it looked like and at least tell them what size the blocks were and how big the borders were. Isn't that enough? However, everybody kept saying, well, how do I make the pinwheel? And I guess maybe my son will say I'm very mathematical in mind, because my head was like, well, yeah, you just do this, you know. Well, I soon learned, as he brought up the other slide, you have to give more detailed instructions than what I was giving. And this is actually kind of how I got started into it. And I really found that the biggest thing was pictures. Because if you can see it in pictures, much easier to explain something than with words. So what you'll see in my patterns are a lot of pictures that are there. If you go to the next one, and you'll see on these slides what we've tried to show, and if you want to look at the quilts later too, but in the kind of white on the left side of each quilt, it will show you what stitching pattern is actually designed. And actually, ladies, that was my cue for the very first quilt. Sorry. This was my first, what I'll say, published pattern. I called this Scrappy Country Star. It was made probably around November, December, because it was Christmas fabric. And beautiful quilt. I entered it. Better Homes and Gardens had a thing saying, hey, enter your patterns. We may put you in our magazine. I didn't think anything of it because I never heard from them. Until my husband decides on our 20th wedding anniversary to have a quadruple bypass. He was in the hospital. He just had surgery. They sent me home for the night, saying there's nothing you can do now. He's in safe hands. Go home. Take it easy. Well, I go home. You can lay that one down now. Go home, take it easy. And I, of course, turn on my computer, and I pull up an email that's from American Patchwork and Quilting, saying, hey, we'd like to put your quilt, which you just saw, as our calendar for 2012 for the month of July. And I'm sitting there going, huh? Well, I must have taken a lousy picture because they thought it was red and green, or red, white, and blue. I had him in the hospital. My lady said, no, you've got to redo this quilt as fast as you can. They gave you 2 months to get it done. As fast as you can, in red, white, and blue, and we'll put it in the calendar. And as you show it on the screen, it made the 2012 calendar, and my husband had to point out, not only did I make the center, or the cover, so I was cover girl, it was also July, so I was his centerfold. The next picture on the slide shows kind of the stitch. It's a little hard to see the stitching that's on the back, because he did some custom borders and stuff that I have the beauty of, my long arms are computerized, but have the ability of having him make custom patterns for me, and even with my new machines, do them myself. Go on to the next one. I had to kind of laugh because you guys were just talking about a project of the month, stuff that you were doing. For a while at the shop, I had what I called a project of the month series, which after I named it that, I then looked at the abbreviation of PMS, and I thought, maybe that's not the best thing to call it. But here's one of the little things that I did. They were little tiny things that I had kits made up for every month, so it meant coming up with a pattern every month. It was things like, the placemats here, wall hangings, table runners, just tiny little things you could get done in a small amount of time. let's flip to the next one. Some other reasons I made the quilts was we did shop hops. This was a 7-shop shop hop that we were doing.
Sorry guys, the
and needed
slides
to
will
create
always
a
be
quilt
backwards.
that all the shops were using. We were able to have each shop, 5 shops handed out blocks. A 6th shop handed out the log cabins that are the setting triangles and the piece border. And then the 7th shop handed out the overall how do you put it all together design. It actually, in the pattern, you can then continue on making full squares of the setting triangles and make this into like a full size. You could go up from there with more borders, but make it into a larger size quilt. All right, then we started getting into those wonderful things called block of the months. Hadn't really tried them. I started them the first couple that I did were from Thimbleberries because they provided all the patterns and things like that. But I decided to try them on my own simply because the one Thimbleberry block that I did, I had a ton of this, the fabric that you see, the kind of busy fabric that's the setting triangle around each one of these squares. I had a ton of it left over, simply because I was frugal enough in Thimbleberry's block of the month. This was a vine that was running lengthwise down the fabric, and they wanted you to give everybody like 3 yards of, make them pay 3 yards worth of the fabric, when all they needed was 4 of those stripes, which was like half of the 3 yards. So I decided to make it less expensive for people, and I only gave them the half that they needed, and so I had a ton of bolts left over. What's unusual, we called this the block of the month because if you look at it, every block is the same block. All I've done is move the fabric around and it makes it look like totally different blocks. These are big blocks too. I think they're like 12 inches, it's not so. Because when I started doing blocks of the month, immediately people said, well, it has to make a king-size quilt. And I'm like, a 12-inch block? How am I going to make a king-size quilt out of that? So I gave them bigger blocks.
17.
17, you're right, there were 17 inches when you added the setting triangles. This was my most popular block of the month. I had 60 people finally. I had enough fabric left over from what they would have wanted me to sell to the other people, that I had 60 people who were able to do that quilt. So since it kind of worked, I ended up having block of the month 3. Now that these won't be in.
Ladies, I will also see if they will allow us to share the slideshow when we get finished,
These were then
so that you
other
can
ones I
kind of
created,
review
all the
back
same
if you would
process.
like.
They have a larger block with some sort of a busy fabric that I can match all the colors to, and had block of the money colors 2, 3, and 4 that I didn't bring tonight, as I didn't want to bring every quilt in my stash. The other thing I decided to get into was applique, which we do have the one, I think I've got all 4 of these. When I got into applique, this is machine. I love doing machine applique, and I'm talking about doing the blind stitch, not having a embroidery machine do it around for you. But I have this bad habit of if I do something fall, which I love fall as a season. If I do something fall, then it's like, well, where's the summer version? Where's the winter version? Where's the spring version? So I end up doing multiples, so it ends up as a series of patterns that deal with the various seasons of the year. Okay?
They all use the same surround.
Right, yeah, they're all
They just have-
identical sized blocks in the layout. They're just changed.
What is the block in that your whole Bayland, what is the one that's clear or the middle?
Snowflakes,
It's
I
a
think.
snowflake.
Oh,
Do you want to close up?
Oh, that's all right.
Okay.
okay, now Rick flips to the next slide just to show you, I did a similar type thing only with little tiny. Each of these little quilts are only 19 inches wide by 45 inches long. So they're little tiny pieces, even like for the fireplace, the stockings hung above the fireplace was a very tiny little quilt. Yeah, that's going to be the next one. Okay, this quilt actually inspired a tool. So if you go to the next one, hon. I was working actually on this quilt and found, once I had it all designed and laid out, that I was gonna have to do 144 corner triangles. And what I mean by a corner triangle is where, well, if you think of a snowball quilt where you got a square and you notch out the 4 corners, 144 of them suckers in here. And I'm like, oh, I hate doing this. In fact, my teacher for one of my classes came up and she said, yeah, they're working on these crazy corner squares and they're hating them because they never come out right. That's what I designed the ruler to do. I did it back in 2012. We've done many different shows and stuff selling the ruler, and now there's quite a few knockoffs of it that are on the market where they're actually helping people not have to do the square in the corner, sew on the line, and cut off and waste extra and fold it into the corner.
But theirs are not as accurate and they do not save as much fabric.
There you go. That's why he's my salesperson.
Big,
But that we
big.
did do as a block of the month, and it had 12 different colors. Afterwards, after I told people that they could choose what colors they want, I realized what kind of a logistical nightmare that was going to be to come up with all these kits every month, but I got through it. So using that same, oh actually the next picture is the stitching on the back of that particular quilt. Alright, so the next one which she has in her hand was one of the first things I did up with the Perfect Corner ruler, because I wanted it for these large flying geese and for the large, flying geese that are part of the star too. By using the Perfect Corner ruler on here rather than the sew on, stick a square and cut off method, that particular quilt used 1/4 of a yard less background than the old method would have done, because you're not throwing away those extra pieces. So the next quilt, which he can bring up on the slide, the next quilt, I'll embarrass my son here. You'll see it's called zigzagginess. And he's going to hide. That was a word he was given on one of the, what do they call those, a spelling bee? Yeah. And of course, who knew there'd be 2 G's in the middle of zigzagginess, so that was the word he missed. So since this zigzagged all over the place, it got named for his word. This one actually saves quite a bit of fabric because these are huge squares, so they're huge corners that you're cutting off. And then we'll go on to the next quilt as well. There's actually, I'm only going to show you 2 of these quilts, but there were 5 of them I ended up putting into a book I called Perfectly Frugal. Because I wanted to show, it literally, the patterns will show you how to do it the old way with the square in the corner versus the new way on the right of each pattern, to get people used to using the ruler as well as showing them how much they could save. This one was actually called Explosion of Diamonds. That was done up. The last 3 quilts he'll bring up on the screen were the remaining ones, and I wrote down some hints here. Is that if you did all 5 of these quilts in a twin size, you saved 3 1/8 yards of background fabric using the tool. If you did them in all 4 or 5 of them in the king size, you saved 6 1/4 yards just by using it the other way. Okay, believe it or not, that little tiny purse is my next one. It was actually made out of leftover fabric. One of the things I also found that I created patterns for was when a new product would come out. And in this case, let's see, I didn't have a date here, but they came out with a product called Iron-On Vinyl, which allowed you to waterproof things. Really nice product. There isn't any on here, but I actually created the diaper bag first. It can also be a sewing bag. And the little mat that you see below it on the screen, I had vinyled it so you could change a baby's diaper and not have it you could wipe that thing off because it had the vinyl on it. Well, of course, I had leftover quilted fabric from that I couldn't throw away, so that ended up being a little 6-pocket hipster. So I ended up with 2 patterns from 1 product. Another product, and that was, I think, 1 person could hold there, they came out with that big brick rack. Well, one of the things I found with this one is, notice I'm not showing you a stitching pattern on this particular slide. Well, that's because once I put it together, I found when I sewed on the rickrack, I could stitch as I go and put the quilt together and have it quilted by the time I got it put together. So it didn't need to be long-armed. But that was a way of using the rickrack. And another product came out, and it's still out there now. They were placemat forms. In this case, this one had rounded corners. They had square ones, they had oval ones, and that I do not have an example of. So I did up a pattern that did something with these for each of the seasons of the year. Again, I'm a seasons nut. All right. Then we would get different tools into the shop. This next quilt was, I got into the shop, Marty Michelle's large kaleidoscope ruler, which you see on the slide there. And I never use a tool as it was originally designed. I just don't. I think of, what else can I do with this? Well, this is what I ended up with, a very striped or striated star. It looks harder than it is because you've got these little tiny strips that are done in here, but it's actually, what do they call it? It's strip pieced. You put these strips of various widths together, and then using that tool, use it to cut the diamond shape that puts it together.
And the pattern actually has a template for it.
Right, so if you didn't have a
You don't
ruler,
have to buy the pattern.
right, you don't have to get the ruler. This was a quilt I also made. This was the first show we did, because we started traveling around selling patterns, selling all kinds of things, and we did the big Houston Quilt Show and Market in, where's that? Houston, duh. My brain was saying Dallas, and I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense. So that was not my colors. I mean, I'm a more dark Kansas Trouble type color person, and he said, make it bright so it sticks out. Okay, another tool that came on the market, there's the still stitching that's on the back of that one. No, the previous one. Okay, another tool that came out, let me see if I can find it here. No, I got it forward. Was called the 6-inch log cabin trim tool. They originally came out with a 12-inch, and it was so huge, I was like, I don't see any purpose for this. Then they came out with a 6-inch, and it was put out by Creative Grids. It's a really cool tool if you like to be accurate, because what they have you do is you make your center and make the first round of logs of your log cabin. Then this tool goes on, and you make your logs a little bit bigger than you need them to be. You put on the tool, and you trim those down so they're absolutely the correct size. Then you sew on the next round of logs, use the same ruler, but it's got different lines for it, trim that one down, and finally do the third row around. So you end up with very accurate size blocks. If your block isn't 6.5 by the time you got done, you move the ruler or something. But I ended up using this with batiks to do this particular quilt I called, what did I call it? Like Diamonds in the Sky, yes. So that's where that one came from. Okay, then the last tool, well no, the second to the last tool created ruler, it's going to be the first one, right hand, yes. Is, again, Creative Grids came out with 120, we're upside down, ladies. They came out with a 120-degree ruler and a pin. It was like, what can I do with 120 degrees? Well, right off the bat, blocks came into mind, only I didn't want to just do plain blocks. I ended up creating, again, strip piecing, various colors. This was all one fabric, what do you call it? Collection, there you go. That would all match together, and I ended up making them all striped, and then you use the ruler to cut it into the correct diamond shape to get it all the way back together. This actually was the first quilt where I designed the stitching pattern. This was stitched on my long arm. I designed the stitching pattern because I needed a whole diamond, a horizontal half diamond, a vertical half diamond, and quarter diamonds too. But I laid out what I wanted, and he designed it up for me, and that's the result. And yeah, there's the back of that one. I don't think we have that picture on the screen.
No, we don't.
Okay. All right, then you probably recognize these next couple of little tools. They were hot back in 2013. Well, actually, before that, they had come out with the little twister, and I think they called it the big twister, that I saw no purpose in. It made huge blocks, and you're supposed to, they wanted to motivate a lot of money off of because they went with layer cakes, and then the 3.5-inch little twister went with your charm squares. But I didn't really see much use for it until they got to the littler ones. And I'm talking little, that itty bitty, that tool is only 1.5 inches wide when you're done. So you're starting with little blocks. Is anybody not familiar with what a twister quilt is? No, you must, no? Okay. What a twister block has you do is you put together the entire quilt as nothing but squares that follow a certain pattern. Like in the example of this, that top block would have had blocks that formed a U. And then of, and then the M, and so forth. Now, I apologize for the states that are represented here. We were in Ohio when I created these, and Michigan people come down I-75, so I had to have some Michigan. But anyway, you have blocks put together, and then you use the tool and those strange lines that are on it to twist that tool and lay it on your intersection of your lines and recut a square out of a kind of a twisted angle. And then they all go back together again. So you're double cutting. Yeah, well, that is OSU. Now this has, both of these are the same pattern. They're just, if you use the little itty bitty, it makes it this size. If you use the primitive one, it makes it the OSU size. And if you use the little twister, I think you had a full size bit. Same pattern, same technique, same layout, is just bigger tools. Of course, more fabric for the bigger ones. So I kind of went nuts. I think by the...
Also, those patterns have all of the letters of the alphabet.
Right, I was going to start to say that and I forgot. Yeah, so all the letters of the alphabet as well as that of is in there. So you can do any particular state, or team. So since there were all those letters, I thought, well, hey, what if we use the, no, skip one more, hon. We're past it. No, you don't know, so you've got the right quilt. He's got the wrong screen. I decided, what if this is the size of the blocks if you use the little, the 3.5 inch square, and this too had all the letters, so you can make a baby quilt out of it and put their, probably if you didn't know the name, you could put their surnames letter on it, was where I came up with initially baby. Then, let's see. Okay, she's going on to the next one. This next one is probably my best-selling pattern ever. Mainly because, how many people have heard of Keepsake Quilting, the mag? Well, they used to send out magazines, now they can get a link online to go see it. They picked this one up, and boy, can they sell patterns. They actually did up kits. It was unusual when they chose this as a pattern. They wanted to know, so they could closely, and get it as close to a match as they could, what all the brands of all the fabrics that I had used in there was. So they could come up with a kit on their own that was very close. This one is actually done using the middle, the primitive ruler. If you did it in the larger one, you ended up with a full-size quilt, with the big old butterfly in the middle of it. Another one I did that I didn't, question, yeah?
Did you have any trouble in pressing those small blocks?
Yeah, a lot of burnt fingers. Yeah. I found in a lot of cases what I ended up doing was when I sewed them into a long line or a long row, because you create each one, I'd press one way and the next row the opposite way so they'd nest. But then the long seam I would open because it was just so full and so tight and all those seams hitting each other that... Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And with starch. I'm a big one for starch too. Okay, now, back up one slide, would you, Rick? I don't have this one to show you, but I also did a welcome and hangs on a door. Actually, it was really cute. The last, or maybe it was 2 times before, the Quilt Sampler magazine that shows you the top 10 or whatever it is shops. They had a shop in, I believe it was Washington State, where hanging in the back, they had done I was like, hey, there's my pineapple. They had done that one in a twister. I did a pineapple and then go to the next one. Then laying in bed one night, I kept telling him, I'm not going to do any more twisters. I am not going to do any more twisters. And I came up with a Lone Star. I was like, how can I do that? So Lone Star got done. I had a lady actually want to know if she could do this with the large 8-inch. But I said, yeah, if you want to cover a football field, you can probably do that.
Yeah, that is 90 by 90 squares.
And that version used the primitive. Okay, the other one I did was kind of a, what do you want to say, making good of a mistake, I guess you could say, because I was going to do the wedding ring, only I was going to do 3 of them across and make it a table runner. but it got to be so big, and it was like, it looked kind of strange as a bed runner. So I finally got the idea that I could bring it down and make a heart out of it, so it ended up being a wedding ring that, too, was done in the primitive size. So, then I got a little whimsical, as you go to the next slide, and she's got it. Somebody asked me to do a dog. So I tried to do a least breed looking dog as I could. And then since I had the dog, of course I had to do the cat, which some people say looked like a bunny rabbit, but that's not a bunny, that's a cat.
The quilting is paw prints.
Yeah, and so they're creating their paw, and he's got dog bones all over him.
Yeah.
That's so cute. And then the final one, yeah, which we do have the quilt, and he just brought the slide up. The final one, I actually found a way where you could make a two-tone, two-color pinwheel, which became very useful in the bottom edge of this quilt to make the leaf at the bottom of what looks like a flower with a button in the middle. And it's just basically splitting the square in half, but I called that Mayflowers, I think, was with a twist. And that was the last twister pattern that I did. Although we did turn around, we were selling these at shows, and so many people wanted multiple ones, and they didn't want to buy that many patterns. We ended up putting, was it 5 of them, into a book, so that, and promoted that at our show. So we do have one book that not only tells you, if you've never done twisters before, some hints and tips on how to do them, as well as gives you all these same patterns. Okay, another way I came up with patterns, this is one that I created way back when. It was a long, called it Twisted Star, table runner. Simple little star, did it up. No real reason that I had for doing it. However, it spawned the next quilt, which you're going to have, because I had a wonderful lady named Julia that came into the shop and she said, "Can I use your table runner block and make a different quilt out of it, and make a whole quilt out of it?" And I'm like, "Well, sure, you can do that with any block." So she had been given fat quarters for her birthday, and then she had told her what her favorite colors were, so she had fat quarters, one dark, one light, of her favorite colors. And I went with 5 different colors here, one dark, one light. And of course, first of all, found a border that I used to match everything too. She had done, I did a double sashing on the pattern when I ended up doing it. She had only sashed it once with the same color all the way throughout the entire quilt. But I said, "Hey, can I use your idea in a pattern?" She was just tickled that, you know, I would do something she had done. So I had to call it Julia's Star by the time we got done, and she was very tickled. Okay. All right, the next one. This was one I kind of was fixating on, it just went out of my head. What do you call that border that,
It's the Indian one.
the border, normally it's just diamonds?
Seminole.
piecing.
Seminole. I got into thinking, I had done a Seminole border on something else, and it was like, what can I do where basically you sewed the whole thing together sideways, and then turned it and cut cut all the extra little jagged edges off and made a column out of it.
It's sideways.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Easier for them to hold though.
Yeah, it's easier that way. I even got into where it's like, well, okay, how can I make it look like one's hanging off the top? I could have made them all hang off the top, but I thought I'd be a little funky and have one hang off the bottom and one hang off the top. This one made a great class. I taught this at one of the guilds back in Ohio, and it was so cool to see this in so many different colors. But that was called Staying Connected. And this one, even though it is an autumn quilt, you'll definitely see it's autumn when she holds it up. Oh, we got it right side up. It actually started, I had seen something similar to this, but it was supposed to be a snowflake. And by the time I got it looking at it, it was like, well, to me those look like arrows. So it was like, what if I make this more into an autumn quilt, whereas these are Indian arrowheads, or the back tails of a feather. I even got as far as wanting to do the applique work in the center. But then when we published the pattern, it was like, well, people aren't going to be able to find that fabric. Well, I didn't find the fabric. I printed the fabric. I went online, found pictures of corn, and printed it off on fabric. So one of the things we do with that pattern is it has that printed off already. So the corn is provided on fabric in the pattern so that you can, although I have had somebody, I don't know what they did in the center. I think they put a snowflake, but they did a Christmas snowflake version of that same quilt, which, you know, it's kind of neat to see people how they take your one idea and then do something else with it. Okay, now again, I'm getting kind of goofy here. It's like, one day I had the idea of what happens if you only sash around 2 sides of a block instead of all 4. And I started playing. You know, when I say playing, I use Quilt Pro on the computer. So there you can mock things up and turn them around every which way and see what happens. Well, the only thing I realized was going to be an issue is if you look hard at the pattern, you'll notice that the plain square actually had to have a inset corner to finish off the zigzag effect that it's doing for you. So since it looked like lightning, I decided to call this Sash of Lightning instead of Flash of Lightning. And that was a fabric I fell in love with. We were actually doing a show at Sodders, the place in Shipshewana. Yoder's, thank you. And this fabric was hanging over the rack behind me, and it was just like, I have to have that. Okay, this fabric really did speak to me. What was speaking to me was the background feather. We have, which is pictured in the large picture on the top left. Lady brought in a quilt to have me do, and this was her background for her quilt. And I'm a Kansas lover, Troubles lover. And she brought this in, and I was like, oh, I just love that. I mean, every once in a while a fabric will just hit you. And I must have fawned over it so much that she says, well, I got some extra, I'll bring it to when I pick the quilt up. Well, I ended up doing this it's called the Old Mosaic, Old Italian Mosaic, because that's that X block. That was the name of that old block. But I ended up then using that fabric as kind of the background in a way. I have a light sashing with darker blocks. The lady actually ended up bringing like 1.5 yards of the fabric and a great big long piece where she cut things from. I found enough of it on the internet to finish it. The one thing we did do is, he did for me, if you look at the stitching shown in the white there on the bottom left, is we took that flower that was on the fabric and made it, it's got the little hearts and the leaves, just how the fabric looked, and made it into a vine, which is, as you'll see how it's quilted on the, because I love to be able to take something in the quilt, because a lot of people will come in and they'll say, I want this on it. But a lot of times they have no idea. So it's like, okay, I start looking at the fabric, what's in it. Okay. I'm going to actually jump 2 more slides. For some reason our quilts are out of order. That's okay. This one, I have to, I don't know if there's a back or a front to that. Oh, I see the label is there. This is, you might not be able to see too much on the actual quilt because it's kind of light. This fabric came from Sodders in Ohio. I had a customer bring me a quilt that she had done from a magazine. It was a red and white quilt. And the magazine actually gave her the stitching. The octagonal feather that you see there was printed off in the magazine. And she wanted her red and white quilt done exactly like the pattern was done, or the magazine showed it. So he mocked up the octagonal feather there, and by the time I got that quilt done, I was such a fan of this feather that I took note of what it took for that feather to fit into. And ended up, hers was a 2-block quilt that kind of meshed together. There was no, you kind of hid the feather, and I wanted the feather to show. So I ended up putting more of a sashing around it, but it had to have these little bump outs to allow that feather to fit onto the block.
It turns out that feather is in our advanced long arming class.
Correct. To place that on there. It's an example of placing something inside the sashing but around the center star. Okay, so Rick, you're gonna have to go forward one more. This one I did for fun, because I'd seen this pattern, but to me the cat always didn't quite look right. So I ended up, and I wanted to do, every once in a while I get tired of a rectangle, so I'll do an octagon. And I have a different way of doing octagons and putting those borders on, so you're not mitering those corners. They're just, you're slapping the sides on it. It makes it look like it was hard to put together, but it's not. But I have the tails of the cats going around. And since I did the table topper, I also, well actually I should say I designed this for his wife, who is a cat lover, and I wanted to I've been giving her all kinds of table toppers for various seasons, various animals. Well, since I did the cat, I also had to do the dog. Of course, the nondescript dog, most people, fabric reps will tell you, people don't like to buy dog fabric if it's not their breed. Cats, they don't care who cat it is. But I tried to make it as nondescript as possible, but there were the cat and the dog. All right, now Rick, back up to the about 4 slides to happen to hold. One more, okay. This I designed as a wedding quilt. As you can see, it's 2 colors. So we got the bride's color and the groom's color, and that's how the pattern refers to everything by. The actual log cabin on it is pieced, and then the humps of the heart are appliqued on. This part of it here is actually sewn in then. You're appliquing the hump to the background fabric, and then that becomes a piece that you sew onto the sides of your square to get a pieced look. This one I ended up took me forever, but highly custom the background. I wanted it to have all the stitching and have the hearts themselves, which he's showing you. Oh, and the other thing now you kind of see the backing of how that was heavily stitched. I'm not one to so heavily stitch my quilts. To me, they get stiff.
This quilt is heavy.
It makes it very heavy. If you go back one, hon, I forgot to mention, he would put the quilt down. I forgot to mention, because we're doing those applique, the pattern actually shows you how you can baste around your curve and put a cardboard in there that's the 1/4 inch less than that, and pull on your basting and get a nice curve around your piece to make those hearts hump.
Kind of like making a sleeve.
Yeah, yeah,
So, if that is sewn on to the log cabin, so basically you've got 3 pieces of fabric on that seam there then, right? The background fabric, okay,
Right. Correct. Okay, and I believe this is for Tired Arms here. This is the last quilt, which was the last big quilt that I've done in a while. This was actually, I belong to the Bluffton, Ohio Scrap Quilters Guild. And in January 2019, they came out with a challenge that said, make something with a Dresden plate. Didn't have to be an entire Dresden plate. In fact, I think the rule was you had to have at least 2 spikes, whatever you call it, at least 2 of them off of a Dresden. And I had bought this fabric as a stack of fat quarters, and then the yardage for the border. And I kept looking up, what do you do with reproduction fabric? What do you do? And I kept seeing baskets, baskets, and baskets. So I finally ended up creating the handle of the basket as the Dresden, and actually put in the pattern, since you really have to make that tight arc, I put in something that's a lot like paper piecing, that once you had your little Dresdens made, you could use the paper piecing template to get them sewed together into the correct arc so that they would fit on the little basket. And this one I went nuts with the quilting on. So, all right, that is all the quilts I had to show. Tell you a little bit more. He added, now that's all I had in the presentation. Of course, Mr. Adman here had to add some more things. Like we have 2 ANOVAs, as I said earlier, with 5,000 different designs that we do. And we started something different when we moved here, in that had been doing DIYs, do-it-yourself quilting. I know Steph in the corner has done quite a few, and there we go, did a little king size one. Where even though they're computerized, we help you get it set up for you, whatever design you want to use, and you're just basically the minder of it. You know, when it gets to the end, you're pulling it off, show you how to roll it forward, type thing. Different way of doing a little bit less expensive to get a quilt done by doing it yourself. And let's see what else you got there. The other thing he wanted me to tout, go to the next slide,
Oh, I didn't know you.
is we switched to the Innovas, what about 4 years ago now? We had staplers that we were using, and we switched to the Innovas. And as we got them, I did a lot of looking at videos and things online to learn how to use various things, but there were a lot of their details that there was no manual. There's a help text button, and all it tells you is a description of what that does. It doesn't tell you what order you have to do things in. And that was beginning, we worked with Accomplished Quilting up in St. Joe quite a bit, and Jeff up there was saying, you know, his what do you call it, people calling in for help was just getting more and more and more because there was nothing to tell people how to do some of this stuff. So we sat down over a Christmas holiday, I guess it was, and wrote the manual, or at least an advanced training course, on how to use all the various functions that the machine did. And one of the things we wanted it to be, to help out Jeff, was be totally self-study. So not only can you follow what to do in the book, but we created videos that show my voice or hands or his hands on the machine doing it. So you can follow along from the book into the screen exactly how to do that. And that has, I think, pretty well eliminated most of his help calls that he's been giving.
I hope he paid you a lot.
Well, somewhat.
What?
She said, I hope I got paid for it. So, since then, we actually wrote, that's the training book. The other thing that Innovas did, because I said I started doing some of my own designing myself, is they built into it a way of designing patterns kind of on the fly. And that too, there was nothing to tell you how to do all of this stuff. So we created on our own a second book that was called Be Creative, that went through all the various functions of how you could use their designing things to take one pattern, pull the, like for example, is the one pattern had, I forget what was on it, we pulled off something and put in bees, I think it was. And so you could take an edge-to-edge pattern. If you wanted to add a leaf instead of a balloon, you could just, you know, take your balloon, add it in, and go from there. So we wrote a book on how to do that as well. And so we've had to learn a lot about how the machines work that way too.
Both books are 100 pages.
Yeah, they're about 100 pages. I think we're almost through. He's got great, we've done presentations, trunk shows, classes. Go to the next one. Okay, other services. You know, it's funny, he asked me, he says, well, what other non-long arm services are there? And at the time, I could only think of binding. It's like, well, okay, put on binding, that's one of them. But then I started thinking about all the things that you get when you're a long armer, because I've got down here replace borders. I've had to take borders off of quilts and put them back on again because they were just too full. Adding on like to a backing, the backing, you know, we tell people, give us 10 inches. Well, we get 2 and it runs out, it does. So you run, I put a sewing machine on a chair with wheels, put it up along this, on the machine, the quilt that is mounted on the machine, and sew along to add a piece to it. We've done things like repairing seams, because seams do come open on a quilt, and that can be very dangerous. I had one that was, who's the lady that does all the paper piecing, those really,
Yeah.
there you go. It was a Judy Niemeyer quilt, and they evidently tore open a seam when they tore off their paper from the back. And wouldn't you know, my foot got stuck in that thing and ate a hole through the whole back and front. And, you know, the only thing you can do is call up the client and say, do you have any more of this fabric and that fabric? And, you know, because it's all paper piecing, so I had to kind of work backwards on, you know, tear that section open. And we do a lot of weird things when you run into problems.
All those things we do with the client's permission.
True.
We do
True.
not do anything to a quilt that doesn't have it.
Yeah, my rule is it's gonna cut when somebody's quilt, they know about it first.
Yeah.
Because in some cases, they'll say, no, send it back to me, I'll repair it. You know, it's just what they wanna do, yeah,
You said the quarters were a little too long in some cases.
right.
Is that correct? What are the quilters doing wrong?
Number one, they don't measure. Their biggest problem is they don't measure. And a lot of times what they're doing is they've got a strip, they'll lay the strip on the bottom of the sewing machine and they'll put their quilt on top and just start sewing. And right off the bat, if you don't have an even feed foot on your machine, the bottom fabric is being fed faster because of the feed dogs than the top. So you're going to immediately, in fact, I usually find that one border will be okay and the other one won't be. Because on the other border, they had the fabric for the border on top and the quilt underneath, and they stitched along it. A lot of it, if you use an even feed foot, that can help, but absolutely nothing replaces measuring
And pins.
and pinning it along and making sure because it just, especially if your quilt has like bias edges to the blocks that come out to the edge, they just, you know, if you're doing that and it's a real heavy quilt, just the fact that it's falling into your lap as you're pushing it through the machine is enough to stretch those bias edges out, and there's just, you end up, I mean, I usually can tell by laying the quilt on I have a long, 120-inch long ironing board. I lay that thing out, and you'll see. And I can usually pretty well test, okay, that one I think I can do okay without having problems.
Well, do you cut it exactly?
What I do, the books will tell you to do that. I think, that makes me a little bit nervous to do that. So what I'll do is I'll have my border, and I'll come in maybe an inch and make a mark. Have that where I start measuring from, and I'll go to the other end of the border, and I'll make a mark with maybe another inch of the fabric left. So I've got a little bit of margin and something I can square up nicely when you go to press that open. Because no, I don't like to just have it cut right there and that's going to be my ending result. Because I like to be able to put a square on that corner and make sure I've got a nice 90-degree there. But usually it's measuring. It's just,
But not sewing it like on a strip, like you said.
right. Yeah, just sew it on and go from there.
Ruth,
Because, yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to point out, that this is coming up to the two later. The newsletter, we have a newsletter that we send out an awful lot of. It's not very much, it's very little sales. We just did 28 articles on how to get the best out of your long arm dollar. And that was one of the topics. If you go to our website, go to the tab that says newsletters, it lists every newsletter we've written since 2016. They actually, those newsletters start long arming and then a number. So go to our website, it's free, you know.
Which, by the way, if you want to be on our website, we did lay up right in front of him as a clipboard that you can give us your email address. We absolutely do not sell our email address to anybody. The only thing we use it for is either sending out things like the newsletter or announcements or like sales. When we do, occasionally we'll do sales. We'll send out emails to,
We'll do like 5 or 6 sales a year.
yeah.
But so far this year, we've sent out 30 emails, and one of them had to do with a sale.
Okay, so the last one we have there is we did bring along patterns for just about every quilt that we showed you tonight. And he's having trouble going forward.
Oh, we do photo transfer too.
No, that's true. I have had photo transfer to put photos on quilts. We've had photo transfer to do labels for backs of quilts, things like that. Okay, so selling patterns tonight. If you're interested in any of these patterns, here's the deals that we're giving on them. My two ladies that helped with holding the quilts up, you both get free patterns. Pick out one that you like. I also have my Perfect Corner ruler and its matching book. I have 2 of them I'm giving away. So, the question is, who here has their birthday You don't have to get the year. Closest to today. Who's the closest?
April 8th.
Anybody have a birthday in April?
Any Aprils?
Mine is March 29th.
Okay, so we got March 29th. Anybody March 30th or 30 days past September? No, okay. Or 31? Okay, there's one of them. The other one goes to, who's got a birthday closest to Christmas? 12/25.
Mine is the 31st.
31st, anybody closer? No, looks like you both. Okay, any other questions that anybody can think of? Anything I glossed over, or did I talk too much?
No, it's very good, very good.
Oh, she's the lucky lady.
Down here. Well, I will turn the microphone back to Never after. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. I got it.
Oh, girls, did you love it? Isn't that great presentation? Thank you so much. All right, we are going to do show and tell. And I want to try to get this to go as quick as we can. Do you have show and tell here?
You want to do yours first?
Oh, I'll show mine first.
It would be nice if
You know,
everybody could
there
come up here
are-
to show it so that people online can see it.
Oh, okay. You
Sorry.
know what? This is just for my golf cart. But isn't it cute? That's Lorelei Designs. I love her fabric, and so I took this golf thing, and it's so cool. It just sits on the seat, and don't have to get everybody's germs. Isn't that cute?
Oh, it's busted too.
Is this you, Bonnie?
That's me. Yeah, when I did a hole in one. Okay.
I showed this at the last retreat, but I know some of you weren't there, so I wanted to show it to you as well. This is foundation paper piecing, so I thought that was kind of a fun pattern, and I also passed that one to Bonnie, and it's very easy, it's very quick, and it's smaller, so that's kind of nice too. And then I've been playing with my long arm, and just working on full cloth pieces. And so I tried, I don't think I'm done yet, but I wanted to show you guys tonight for a little bit of show and tell. So I've been working on this, and so I thought I might just show it off a little bit.
Isn't that beautiful? And that's free motion. Free motion. Wow. Yep. Beautiful, wow. All
If you
right.
don't mind coming up to show your piece so that the people online can see it easier, and I don't have to like wiggle them around and get them sick.
Yes. All right. That table, do you have anything? All right. If you need help, that's good. Right here. Yeah. Right here.
My name is Christy Sass. I've been trying to finish up old stuff. None of you have UFOs, right? This is possibly one of the first things I made. I think I made it right after 9/11. But didn't get quilted or bound until just recently. Thanks. This was from a class in 2005. Was started with Marcia McCloskey. It's a feathered star. So it's something I always wanted to make, and I had never finished it. It was about half done.
Pretty.
She actually taught us how to draft them. She was old school. This is, I'm not sure which way this is, you know.
Whichever
way you want it. I can't decide what this is, but there's a guy named Kent Williams. If you want to go look him up, it's R. Kent Williams. And he's made quite a few of these type of things, and I saw a couple at shows and just absolutely loved them. Yeah. And then I decided to try it, and it was pretty hard to figure out how to do it. Afterwards, I found a couple of other people's YouTube ways of doing it, so I don't think I did the fastest way, but I think I might do it again, it's kind of fun.
It's beautiful.
I could probably do a class on this if you
R.
wanted to.
Kent, what's it called
His
again?
name is Kent Williams, but it's R. Kent Williams, if you go looking for him.
The type of style called.
I don't know. This is called the sine quilt, like a sine wave, but I don't know that there's a name for the method.
But it's not chest lady.
No, it's actually interwoven lines. But anyway, it just fascinated me. And
Very
then
pretty.
this is a Lone Star, obviously, and this quilting was one of the last things I did before I sold my Innova with the autopilot. So I finally got fancy at the end.
It's very pretty. Very pretty, thank you so much. All right, girls, do you have anything at that table? Come on up. And girls over here, get ready if you have anything, okay? I'm going to be snapping my fingers. Come on, come on. Oh, wow.
I took a class at Sweet Stitches, and it was just 2 classes. And basically, you start out with the middle section, and then you add on your borders, and then you cut apart fabric, and you just, well, what do you call it? Applique on. It's just free motion applique on.
Beautiful.
Really
beautiful,
fast.
beautiful. Nice, thank you. All right. You need help? I'll hold.
Oh, no, it's
I'll
not
hold
too
one
big.
side.
It's
Okay.
not very big. This is just a fun little house quilt. I'm Nancy Hoback. Every center has something in it pretty much. There's a couple of Raggedy Ann and Andy's, different people, different cats, dogs, whatever. It's just fun.
It is fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Boy, that's really nice. Yeah. Yes, be sure to say who you are. I'm
Yep.
sorry.
Hi, I'm Martha Kearney, and this is a jacket I made. It's finished.
Ooh, look at that. Isn't that pretty? I love that. Wow.
And this is the project of the month from last
Yes, yes.
month. And this is something I finished a while ago.
And did you hand stitch some of that or all of it?
No, this is machine.
Okay.
And
I want her to talk about it.
and then I've done a couple of little beach things that I've done.
Oh.
So a little,
Ooh, is that pretty? Here, I'll hold.
okay. And then a little sunset
Wow.
and another little beach day.
Isn't that cool, everybody?
And the bag is cute too.
And I made the bag, yes.
That's
But-
pretty. Yes. Oh, I love your jacket.
Oh, thank you.
Very nice. Thank you, thank you. Huh? Oh, I know. I hear you, but your stuff is beautiful. Oh, good. Thank you, Carissa. Say your name.
I'm Roz Besterman. Quilt of Valor, oops, sorry. That was long armed by Ann Heasted.
And this is Quilts of Valor that
Quilts of
you
Valor,
made?
yes.
Yes. Beautiful. Just beautiful. All right, thank you. Introduce yourself.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Chrissy, we'll have her introduce herself.
I'm Mary Persine, and I actually had this when we had the outdoor show and tell back in June at the Nazarene Church. I had this, but it wasn't finished. I just had the top done. It's the Aurora Borealis. It's a pattern by Gudrun Erdla. And I've chased the Aurora in Norway, Iceland, and Canada.
Wow.
And so I took pictures I'd had, no, did see it, pictures that I'd taken, which were pretty bad, And then pictures, professional pictures I found and sort of matched up the colors out of the pictures for it.
That is beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and then I put a mirror on the back.
Oh, wow, that looks cool. Oh, my gosh, all right.
Hi, I'm Diane Warnke.
Wait a minute. Wait, who are you?
Diane Warnke.
Okay.
Karen. This little table runner here. Just made a couple of these this winter for different things. And then I was in Colorado in the mountains and I got bored and I went to a quilt shop and she had this cute little panel and I just loved it. It just reminded me of Colorado.
I just want you to do one thing. Stand still for just a moment. Okay. Good, thank you. Because it was hard to say.
Okay, sorry.
This,
I
did this, and
I don't like to stand still. You know I can't sit
I know. All right, thank you, thank you. Come on up.
Hey.
Hey. And what is your name, little girl?
Hello, I'm Patty Canese. And I don't have a quilt to show, but I made this purse that I quilted.
Oh, I love it.
And I got the pattern at Sweet Stitches. And so it wanted you to use a couple different colors. But then on the inside, it's got all these pockets on all four sides. And then I made a little zipper bag to go inside with a little thing, so it,
Yeah.
and of course I ride motorcycles, so it's got motorcycles all over it.
Well, could I ask
My
you a
Sturgis
question?
my Sturgis material, because I go to bike rallies and go to the quilt shop.
Yeah. Could I hold that center thing? Is there any money in here?
Yeah.
Oh, good, okay, thank you. We ride motorcycles too. Come on up.
I'm Becky Hall.
All right, Becky, here, let me hold.
Let's do this one first. I have Jamie Wallen to thank for this quilt. A couple years back, he put this fabric on the free table. I grabbed it and just recently opened it to see what was left, and much to my surprise, there was a lot of fabric in it.
Wow.
So this is what it came out. And then scrappy of
How cute, huh?
Yeah. So.
That's so cute.
No, it's all cotton.
It's Yellow Brick Road. Oh, sorry, this one.
Yeah, it's shoes.
It's the Ruby Slippers.
Yeah. The only one that Jamie didn't supply was the brown and the gray. He had all this other fabric. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I think I had this red too. But yeah, he had all three of these pieces in a bag. And like I say, he had so much in it, I was really surprised.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, here, let me take that. Let me put this.
Similar pattern, but I just like the colors on it.
Oh, that's pretty. That's pretty. Yes. Okay.
Are you good?
This one I threw together and I don't know, the colors just kind of came out kind of cool, so.
Isn't that pretty?
I thought they were interesting. This is a Quilt of Valor. At the last meeting we had here, somebody put a bunch of Quilt of Valor fabric on the table. So, and this is a really strange panel, but this is how it came out.
Oh, that's pretty.
I like that panel.
Boy, that's pretty. Very nice, Becky. All right.
And then this bag, I found it partially pieced at a thrift shop, and she had taken a bunch of ink and put it all over the front. And I thought, boy, I sprayed it and washed it, and much to my surprise, it came out, so I was able to put the bag together.
Oh, good. All right, well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you. Karen? Hi. And what is your name?
My name is Sharon.
Sharon what?
C.
Okay.
Last October, I found out that my girlfriend was expecting another grandbaby, and that the shower is this Sunday. So this past Monday, I decided I needed to get something made.
Of course.
So it's not bound yet, but it is done, and I can get it ready by Sunday.
Isn't that pretty though?
And her colors were pink and brown, and it's not easy to find something pink and brown.
No, that's beautiful. That's really pretty. Thanks. All right, thank you. Huh? Do we have any others?
Yeah, they're all lining up.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Here, I'll hold this one. And what is your name?
I'm Bev. I'm Bev Smith.
Bev Smith.
Does this fabric look familiar to anybody?
Oh!
I won the jelly roll at maybe Christmas time, last time we got together.
Yeah.
The leftover stuff from the quilt. And then after I had it all put together, then I found out you were doing another quilt, and I felt guilty.
No, don't feel guilty.
But this is just what I did out of that jelly roll.
Yes, that's wonderful. And we have enough left that we're making another quilt. So.
Guess you sort of bought enough, huh?
Oh, yes, we did.
Thanks.
Okay, let me come around here.
It's got it goes this
Oh, my goodness. I think I took the wrong end. I've been known to do that.
This is called Illusions by Missouri Star.
Illusions by
Illusions from Missouri Star. And I made this, I saw this done up at one of the Shipshewana quilt shows. And I bought all the fabrics and then finally put it together. And I met a really nice lady up by my mother-in-law in Wisconsin who does amazing Quilt of Valor work. And she long arms. So we sent it up to her.
Oh, how nice. That's beautiful.
And it's a very generous queen.
Yes, that's very pretty. Good job. Good job. Is anybody over there lined up? Anybody over here? Okay. You know, in the meantime, you never got to tell me your name, and the people here may not all know you.
Right up, Christy Sass.
I think that they didn't hear it. I didn't hear it. So, all right. Got one more coming, is that it? Okay, we're doing good on time, 8:25, that's good. Then we'll have time to shop.
Hello,
Hello, and your name is?
I'm Nancy Ostertag.
Okay.
I have a Quilts of Valor quilt here that was a kit we got from the national group. They sent out the fabric, the pattern, the whole bit. It was a challenge to do. So we got that one done finally. I'm only 3 months late on it.
Okay. Can I get somebody to come up here and help? Sure?
Yep. Thank you. And this one's just a charity quilt.
Isn't that
I got all the little blocks from the table here one time. They were already cut. All I had to do is put them together.
Wow, nice.
And then what was it? The football. What's the football game in February? Super Bowl. I don't watch this.
Is that the Super Bowl
This is
challenge
the Super
quilt?
Bowl.
Oh, that you got, you did it at Sweet Stitches.
Yep.
Isn't that pretty? Love the fabric.
And it's my birthday quilt.
Oh.
Because I made it on my birthday.
Oh, how nice.
But the dark fabric was my best friend gave to me years ago. I didn't know what to do with it. I loved it. So I finally decided I had to make this. And it turned out pretty good.
Gorgeous, gorgeous. Wow.
And that is it.
Okay, thank you very much, Nancy. All right, ladies, please do not leave without taking a look at what we have up there. And I want to tell you something else.
You can announce what's left, what's open still.
Oh, okay. We still have July open for Project of the Month. So if anybody would like to do that, I'd appreciate it, okay? Otherwise, I'm going to call you on the telephone. All right. Goodbye, people out there, because I have to tell these people something.